Hello and welcome to Her Blueprints podcast, where we share stories from women engineering tomorrow. And today I have here with me, and this is very personal for me because she had such an impact on the way that I started to see things, especially when I was studying. And I'm so privileged that she honored my invite. Welcome, Miria.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll let you introduce yourself.
My name is Miria Agunyo. I'm an energy and environmental engineer by profession. Um, I love volleyball. I love music. Um, but generally, I like to call myself that integrated engineer. I think I'll stop there for the introduction.
Okay, I think it would also maybe be relevant to talk a bit about your education background. Yeah.
My education background, if we go as far as primary, I studied in Soroti and up to my P7. And then from there, my O-level was also in Soroti, St. Mary's, that's Madeira. And after my O-level, I then did a stint at Muzira SS for HSC and then crossed over to Tinderview. Completed from interview, and then after that I did my bachelor's in Uganda University, bachelor's in environmental engineering. Then I did my master's in energy and environmental management and a PhD in economic sciences focusing on renewable energy. That is my education journey. Along the way, of course, there have been a number of trainings here and there. Yeah, but that's the journey so far.
I wanted to be like, oh, she has a PhD, guys. I thought I wanted to get a PhD just for the sake of being called doctor. And it's interesting that usually, oh no, Sir Miriam, not doctor. That's so interesting.
Yeah, for me, I mean, most times when someone would call me doctor and all, I would be like, okay, that's pressure because it means like I have to perform, there's some expectation. But generally, I love my name. So I would rather have my name than all the titles.
Yeah, fair enough, fair enough. Yeah. And did you always know that engineering was a path that you wanted to take? Are there any particular experiences in childhood that made you think, maybe I am cut out for this, this is what I want to do?
Yeah, I think for me, knowing whether I wanted to be an engineer came a little early in my O-level. I think I was around 12 years or maybe that's 15 years, really. There I was confident. I had read an article where they were focusing on Winnie Byanyima at the time. And they were mentioning that she was one of the only engineers, I think an aeronautic engineer. I was like, wow, this is unique. I think I want to do something like that. But I also lived in a place in Soroti, just opposite Soroti Flying School. And I used to look at those pilots the making and how they dressed up and how they carried themselves. And I thought, I want to be something close to that. So I thought, well, I think engineering is for me. And at the time I was living with my grandmom and she kept telling me, you are a teacher. And I said, no, I'm not a teacher. Because I used to look at how teachers live and I'm like, no, I think I'm more than that. I'm more than that. So I think for me, the defining moment came when there was a challenge we had in the door frame at home. And it was, the plaster had fallen out, and so you could see the door frame was a bit loose. And I told my grandmom, I can fix this, because when they were working on that house, I was always sitting around the builders and helping them out, understanding what they are doing and stuff like that. And so she said, try it out. So I made a mix of the mortar and everything and went and did the plaster. It fell down almost immediately. And I thought, I think maybe I'm a teacher. Maybe let it go back to teaching. And she's like, no, don't give up. Try it out again. And I did it. And I mean, to date, that door frame is firm. So that's when I decided that engineering is for me. I want to be an engineer. So that's how far it came.
Yeah. I noticed that, when they said, when you tried the first time and it failed, and I said, oh, you can try again. That seems to be something very universal in the engineering journey. The fact that you need to keep trying things and failing at things and understanding why didn't that work and trying to do it again. Yeah, and things like that.
I think it cuts across all fields. It's just that I think depending on the environment, most times, depending on where you are, some people may think, asking or going back and forth or failing the first time is not acceptable. But it really cuts across all things. And I think even through life, really, you really need to be ready to sleep a bit and pick yourself up again. So, yeah. Whether people are accommodative of that or not, that's another thing.
Yeah, because I know you did your bachelor's and then you did your master's and then you did your PhD. What was the motivation to do all that? Especially because for a lot of women in engineering will do a bachelor's and then not even work in the field. And then a few will maybe go ahead to do a master's and then later on a PhD. Personally, I'm already feeling like, I don't want to hear books anymore. What has been the motivation to consistently continue pursuing that?
At the beginning, it was my grandmom. She was my role model, my mentor in many things. She was an educationist. She was called Frida Diamo. She passed on in 2008. But when I looked at her life, because I got to spend a lot of time with her. When my siblings were in boarding school, I was in a day school at the time. So I got to spend a lot of time with her. She used to tell me her stories, her life journey. She was among the few people who had, gone out of the country at the time, studying, doing teaching and all. And she was actually in Australia and then in Britain or the UK. And she kept giving those nuggets of her stories. And I thought, I want to follow this path. I want to go out there and see what's there. But more than that, she kept telling us, when you have an education, you have a key to doing a lot of things. And as a woman, you have to be ready to step out of the norm, because she was really an outlier. She just was out of, coming from TESO, and then you're a lady who was leading at that time in most of those roles. She basically was swimming against the tide throughout her life. So that for me was a motivation. When I finished my bachelor's, I was like, now that I'm done with the bachelor's, I need to excel out in the field. And when I worked in a farm, it was doing environment impact assessments. That was my first job. I met people who had done masters in different fields, and they were very willing to teach us a lot of stuff. And I was like, wow, I need to get the masters now, because they're just telling us, hey, this is just the first step. You need to get a little bit of this and that. And they're teaching us a lot of things. So when I say us, there was a colleague of mine who had also come out of bachelor's. And so we thought we need to do something more. So after 3 years, I was ready for the master's. I didn't know what to expect, but I went anyway. So when I went to do my master's, I got very good guidance, but from my male lecturers, professors. So I thought, hey, I can ask one of these guys to be my mentor. So I walked to one of them and said, can you be my mentor? I'm going to be coming to you and just throw a few ideas at you. Tell me what you think and let's see how it goes. When I finished the master's, one of them said, why don't you do a PhD? My interest at the time was to do internship in Germany. I wanted to do internship for like 6 months, probably work for 1 year, then come back home. And it was like, okay, as you're waiting, write a proposal. And that's how I stumbled into a PhD. I keep telling people I stumbled into this part. I didn't plan a PhD. I just stumbled into it, did it, and I was like, okay, it's possible. So I would think the motivation has been people who see something in you and say, you know what, you can. That has been something that has really been pulling me up.
That's so interesting. And as we segue into the fact that you also actually lecture and teach, because you've had such an impact, and the reason why I keep making reference to the fact that this is very personal for me is because you've been one of those people in my journey where you have so many things going on mentally, and then you go to a class and then hear something and a light bulb goes off and you're like, okay, this is interesting. And I remember you used to say, you used to like give us breaks during during your lectures. Is it 5-10 minutes? And that was interesting. No one else did that for us, but that we used to look forward to those breaks and those classes. But also you used to keep saying, let the garbage out, let the bad ideas out, because if you don't do that, then other things you're not going to make kind of way for other things. Um, so I wanted us to talk a bit about your teaching as well, and what that means for you, and what that does for other people. Yeah.
Um, in hindsight, when I think about the teaching, I keep telling myself, I think my grandmom was right. I'm a teacher after all. Um, yes, I'm an engineer, but I also love teaching. And for me, teaching is not so much about just the skill to teach. When I was doing all these studies of mine, I got to see how different people teach. I had a professor who was he didn't micromanage. He would just show you X, Y, Z and say, have fun, do your thing, and it changed the way I started looking at things. And so when I came back, I told myself, if I step in a classroom, I want to make a difference. And it doesn't have to be something that I have planned to do, but I want what I say and what I do and how I do it to make a difference. I think what has helped me a lot in my teaching has been the experiences that I've gone through, the work experiences, the engagement with different people. Because I noticed that every time I'm teaching, I'm giving examples about life, about this, and I use that a lot because it sheds away the monotony of just coming into class and say it's this, that, and walk away. Because I mean, with the current environment, someone could read that and do it. So for me, the journey of teaching and, what exactly I look forward to is to make a difference. And making the difference is more by speaking into the lives of the people that I meet. Sometimes I don't do it intentionally, but I think the experiences that I've gone through when I make those examples, people don't forget. And they're like, I remember this, you said this, you said this. I noticed that there are some people who are used to learning the different, the old kind of way, if I may say, where they just want to come, give content and get out. And so sometimes I struggle to reach out to those guys. And I'm like, okay, I can't get 100%. If I can get 2 guys who will, switch a bit, that's good enough for me. So I think for me, it's the experiences that influence how I teach. Yeah.
Are there any particular projects that you've been a part of that were very impactful for you, that you really enjoyed working on, that were exciting for you? Yeah.
I think I would say all the places I've put my feet in or projects I've worked on have been very interesting. I've not only learned something, but I think I've given back in one way or the other, but I've grown. But I will start from my master's. When I was doing my master's, I got the opportunity to do my thesis for a company that was that wanted a life cycle assessment to be done for their wastewater treatment plants. So as my colleagues were, having fun during summer, I was trying to understand what is this about so that I can answer this question for this company. And basically, the experience of doing that thesis changed my perspective of things because I had to go to the company, understand what they're doing, and basically they put me at a phase as a researcher there in their company. And that helped me open my mind that actually people trust what you believe in. And if you believe in something and you're confident about it, then people take it up. So it helped me start to think a little bit about how I do certain projects. And then right after that, one of my supervisors for the PhD, he basically recommended me to get a job within the university, the University of Applied Sciences, in Flensburg in Germany. So when I started to work, as a staff member, as I was doing my PhD, I realized that there's a lot of things about the culture and the life that you have to appreciate. So I loved my job, but the experiences, like, the resistance and all, it made me coy. And then I thought, I don't think I like this job so much. But then after that, I sat down with him and asking him, what do I have to do here? And he told me, yeah, it's all about, do you know your content? Are you putting it out right? You'll always get resistance. It's not always going to be a smooth path. And so it changed my perspective. Actually, now I look forward to some kind of resistance in everything that kind of I did. And like, okay, if there's resistance, this is where I have to be. But I think more recently, one of the projects I'd really be glad to talk about is the one I was working at the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Development. I was a project manager for a project that was looking at converting organic waste into electricity through biogas. Through this project, we got to work in 5 cities in Uganda: Kampala, Jinja, Mbarara, Mbale, and Masaka. And I can assure you the experiences of working with cities, the people there, it's humbling, because most times you look at the government, and people have this perception that government entities are not working and all, but you get to see that these guys are really doing a lot with very little, and they are willing to make a change, a small change at different levels. So for me, the impact to reach people, but actually to learn, I felt that I learned much more about my country than I thought I knew. So I think for me, that project would be one I would say, oh, it was a very good experience.
What are some of those things that you learned?
I learned that because we were focusing on waste and all that, I learned that, first of all, the policies that we have in this country, they are really good, but we fail to implement them because we don't plan for the part of implementation. We make the policy, we don't really think how are we going to implement it and enforce. So in the end, you have a policy that ends up getting outdated. Then we are trying to update it, but we are not really pushing it out there so that it can be known, and then you implement it. The other thing that I learned is that we have experts almost in everything here. People have gone out, people have studied, people have done stuff. We have the expertise here in this country. But I think people don't get the opportunity to do the things they practiced or studied to do very well, because the environment doesn't seem to give that space a lot unless you create it. I also learned that that government entities actually have structures that work, and I think it's important to kind of have a step in there so that you get to know what is where. It's by working in there that I got to know that there's a lot on some things. But when you're outside the government entities, you can't seem to get some of these things. Like, you can go to a website, a government website, and you barely get information. But if you step into some of these institutions, you'll be amazed by the information that is there. And it is there because they've worked on it. So those things, I think, helped me realize that, well, I think you need to have a leg here and a leg there to see certain things get done the way you would want them. So yeah.
Earlier you mentioned you were doing life cycle assessment in your master's. Talk to me a bit more about what that means.
Life cycle assessment is just a methodology that helps you to appreciate what is the impact associated with be it a process. If you're producing, let's say, iron sheets. So from the point of mining the material from the ground that is used to make iron sheets, to the point of processing it to make an iron sheet, to the point probably of use. So we talk about cradle to grave. From the very beginning, the cradle being you're picking it from the ground per se, taking it to manufacture and process, and then all the way to use and probably disposal. So you're trying to find out what are the inputs and outputs at each stage so that you can appreciate what is the impact of this one iron sheet produced to maybe the environment or socially, because you can do the social part, you can do the environment part, you can do also the economic part. So it can be very rigorous getting that information, and it helps you see that sometimes the things we say are sustainable or clean and this and that are not really that. They have their baggage they put back into the environment. So
Yeah, that's so interesting. One of my bosses was telling me about life cycle assessment. And he said at the end of his research, it's almost as if they didn't even want him to have it published because of the implications that it had, especially around things that we think are sustainable, not actually being sustainable in the long run. So that's very interesting.
yeah.
You made reference to us having very many experts in the country, but the space not really allowing you to use maybe it to your full potential or utilize it, or it's like there's a way the system coils you not to explore all those things. And you said something about creating your own space. Tell me a bit more about that.
Well, that is a tough one. That's a tough one. Most times you find that I will speak about it from my experience. When I came back, having done my PhD, I knew myself as a bioenergy expert, and particularly leaning to biogas. And I remember coming back and asking one of the companies, a private company, can I volunteer? I just want to volunteer. I want to work with you. I'd seen they'd published something on sustainable cities. And the CEO at the time said, yeah, but let me see when you can come in. And he kept quiet. I thought, okay, that's done. So I then went to one of the associations that's focusing on renewable energy. I told them, guys, I just want to volunteer. I just want to, give some insights here, what I think can be done, but also I want to learn. And they said, yeah, please come on board. And so I would go meet them once a month and give them some insights as I worked at Uganda Christian University. But it really stopped there because, you're not really ingrained in the system. So people take the information you give and run with it. And then, own it as theirs. And then they're like, okay, yeah, we are doing this. And then it came from, your input. Not that you want to be recognized, but you're like, okay, can I work with you on this? Because if you run with it, you fail to understand how I thought about the implementation. So I think my break then came when I got the job at the ministry, because then I could start to exploit and emphasize on the things of biogas and what I thought I knew and all that kind of stuff. Now, when someone speaks about biogas in this country, they'll normally, at least of the first top 5, they'll say, have you talked to Dr. And someone will say, yeah, I'm calling you because of this. And it was not an easy journey to get there. Like I normally tell people, you have to get ready to be used for some years. When I say use, people, exploiting you per se without appreciating what you're putting in there. So it's a bit tough to create the space. I look at some of the students that have passed through, UCU and they want to do different things. A person has done civil and environmental engineering, but is interested in, maybe animation and stuff like that. You have a new idea. You want to include it in engineering, but the engineering field seems to be like kind of defined in squares and boxes, that these ideas that are coming are not almost, they are received, but it's like we don't have a platform to start plugging into. I mean, now I see UIPE talking about innovation and all. Yesterday, I think on Friday, they had a launch of IP sampling. And that's good. And, their interest is, let's go AI and what. And that is good. But again, we have to go beyond. Has the institution created a platform to plug in? That's one, which they are starting to do. But then, is the environment ready to receive that? Is the environment ready to receive a civil engineer who can, do A, B, and C with his, interests in AI and the like, and actually implement it here in Uganda? I think that's what we are lacking. So in the end, you can do something, reach somewhere, get stuck there, then you can't really plug it and say, that is my work, because the environment is not yet ready to receive it. I don't know how we will, navigate past that. Maybe it's a phase we have to go through as a country. But yeah, I think it's a bit tough to finish it up.
Talking about things that are tough, what have been some of your most challenging moments in your journey?
I would always refer to completing the PhD. Doing the work, the field work was fun because my case study area was Uganda. So I'd come to Uganda, pick my results, or rather pick my samples and go and do my lab work. I loved the lab work. I remember doing my lab work, I think in 2016, the whole of summertime I was in the lab. So I was in the lab for about 5 months. And I was okay with that. I loved everything about it until it came to, finalizing my documentation. Now I thought I'll finish this in, 2 months. I sat down and started writing, putting my results together, and I presented my first draft to my supervisor. And they're like, yeah, Miria, I think it doesn't work. Can you do ABCD? And I was just like, this is it. I'm done. I remember calling my mom and telling her, hey, I think I'm going to walk away from here with an MPhil. I'm tired. She's like, what did the supervisor say? I told her, oh, they're saying this and that. And she's like, you have to do that. You have to do it. And I'm thinking, here I was expecting some, pat on the back and say, yeah, I'll come with an MPhil. So I had to go back and almost retweak my work at the very last point. That basically meant that I had to sit in the library every day for about 2 months, from 8 to about 7 p.m. Organizing that. So when I finished submitting my thesis, I felt like, oh my God, I don't have anything else to do. My life was defined by that. You wake up and you're like, you have thoughts running, you want to finish this and that. So I think it was one of the toughest times. I make reference to it always. Like when I say something and I think this is tough, I'm like, it's not as tough as it wasn't as tough as this. But I think for me, that one's the closest. I keep saying, the other one was gruesome a bit. Yeah.
What's something that you struggle with?
That is broad. But I think I struggle a lot with probably being able to, first of all, in the way I discuss, really, or when I speak, I struggle with probably answering something just with one flip answer per se. I think that sometimes when I speak and I listen to myself, I'm like, you keep deviating. Can you be focused? There's some people I've listened to when they are speaking and they just, spot on. So that is one of the things I think I struggle with.
You're doing really well so far.
You. The other would be, I think I can get very impatient. Sometimes I look at stuff around and I'm like, come on, just get over and done with it. So I'm not that patient. I keep telling myself, hey, let me try to calm down and try to be accommodative and patient and stuff. I think for now, those are the ones I can remember very quickly.
I find that you're a very confident person. And I'm not sure if that comes from that teaching or that comes from your consistent interaction with like different kinds of people. But how are you able to kind of build that confidence and say, I'm going to go out there. I expect resistance, but I'm going to push through that, and I'm going to try and get this done the way I want it to get done.
I think it's a cocktail of things that build into that confidence. Actually, I'm not confident every time. Most times when I'm not sure about something, I'm not that confident. So I think for me, one of the ingredients is trying to know what you're doing. I don't always know it, but just trying to have an idea about that. And then I think I've learned not so much to harshly judge myself and think that I am good enough. I am good enough. With all the weaknesses, that is me. I've kind of accepted my weaknesses and all and say, that's me. And so I allow myself to fail. I allow myself to celebrate the few things that work out well. And so that was another ingredient that goes into the building of the confidence. The other is the various people around me. I have a small circle of people who, speak to me, who I meet often, and they'll tell me, "Hey, this, that, this, work on this, leave this out, but other than that, you're good." So that also helps. But also my beliefs. I'm a Christian, and most times I'm like, if God can work with me, come on, it's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think those are the few ingredients that work to that. Yeah.
And what is something that you're really, really proud of? Um,
Mm. I think for me, most times I'm proud of you guys, actually. I don't know whether you've heard from the lower classes. I keep telling them the class of 2019, that class taught me this. And they're like, who was in that class? Because I keep telling them, because for me, it was a class that it was among the first two classes I started to teach at Uganda Christian University. But it was a class that guys were so open to thinking. They're like, yeah, we can take that on. We can. I remember I would enter class and remember Delight. She would just start talking about something that is not related to what we are going to learn. But I was just intrigued that these guys are they're allowing themselves to be everything and anything. I mean, you're doing civil engineering, but I remember Arike,
Arija Pauline.
yeah, she was like, I want to do something in hair. I'm like, civil engineering, not hair. This is just... So, I mean, I think for me, my pride really is in the students I've worked with, and I see that they've gone out there and been great thing. And that kind of disturbs me sometimes because I'm like, that is exactly how teachers behave. They find a lot of pride in the people they've taught. So that is one. The other is, I think, I'm really proud of my family. Yeah, they make me proud at the way they do things and what. I'm grateful to be in that family. It's a simple, humble family, but I'm grateful and I'm proud of them.
Yeah. So we're always happy to be thankful and grateful, and that's a good thing. Yeah. We can also maybe talk a bit about women in engineering in general. And have you felt that we are few? Have you felt certain constrictions because of your gender? And how have you navigated things like that?
If I take the context of Uganda, of course, women in engineering are few. We are for every probably, I don't know how many engineers in an area, you may have one female engineer. The numbers are picking up now, and that's a good thing. And I think that one of the things that kind of limits us is the expectations of life. You find that you come out of campus, you have to get married, and then not you have to, but it's part of the plan, the journey of life, and that also takes its toll. The children come in and all this, so you're splitting yourself on all those things. Sometimes your career path to growth it keeps meandering while the guys seem to keep going straight and straight at it. But I must say that the women engineers in this country are really picking up and stepping on the pedal quite well. I think I met a few who are civil and mechanical engineers, and they're doing a lot, and yet they've still managed to get families and all that. Um, I think also what may be lacking is the intentional mentorship. So you have female engineers, picking up on one person of this and mentoring them if they ask. But I think we may need to create some kind of platform, beyond even a platform, that you actually have women engineers saying, "Hey, we're going to do this. We're going beyond just going to the university saying make a talk, but can you handhold someone all the way to XYZ?" Because I've seen some platforms in water sector, and they're doing that in the water sector, doing it regionally, where you actually have mentorship programs that are intentional, that you get a coach, you get this and that. I think we need that, because I attended some of those chapters for the water sector and the mentorship there. I realized that sometimes someone would just call and say, "I feel I'm drowning, I can't handle this and that and this. What do I do?" The other thing is that while while in the field, one would expect fairness. Nobody's going to be waiting for you to, finish, have your family, and come back and teach you how to do things. You still have to jump in there like you were there. And so sometimes you may feel that the environment is tough for you, or your colleagues are not supporting you, but they're also trying to make it, and it's cutthroat. So sometimes you may find that there is resistance from the male engineers. I mean, I feel like, okay, yeah, you've done this, you've done, but can you fasten your pace and do X, Y, Z, and yet you're holding a number of things, including family. So I think that if we have a platform of mentorship and coaching, and that goes beyond just these talks at the university, but actually handholding the young female engineers who are in the making, so that they can realize that you may have this pothole, but you can move through it this way. This was my experience. I think it will make it a little bit different. Even in the field now, getting a female engineer who is probably a senior, whom you can, latch on and say, "Please, can you be my mentor? Can you guide me?" Sometimes it's not that easy. Yeah. So it's something I think that we probably need to think about and follow up intentional. Yeah.
That's so powerful, because I think one of the reasons that I decided to start something like this is because when you're in the field, you meet so many women, but then from a different vantage point, you're like, oh, there are very few. And you don't really get to hear their experiences, hear how they went through, how they chose to navigate certain situations. And I'm hoping that this can be a start for people to be like, oh, that's someone cool. Let me reach out and see how they did that, or I want to do that. How did she do it? And sometimes we are scared to reach out and ask, and yeah. But I hope that starts to change. I do genuinely believe that. Yeah, because even when I was trying to find a mentor, because the uni where I was, they had a program, and you get to choose basing on what I wanted, someone either African or female, and I failed to find female. And so I ended up with a South African he's with a South African mentor, and he honestly did so much for me. And one of the things that stuck with me was I think he sensed how a bit timid and coiled I was, and he's like, but I meet so many very intelligent people, and you're so well spoken. You need to be a bit more confident. You need to say things like you believe them, because if you don't do that, like, men walk in and they own the room. And yeah, we need to kind of foster that kind of attitude in women. Yeah, and you talked about hand holding, and what does that look like?
It can have very many faces, but it goes beyond just giving a general talk and saying, "Hey, women, you can do it." uh, Someone in that crowd may be struggling to make it with fees. and probably they have to, I don't know, do X, Y, Z to get the fees. So if someone comes to you and says, okay, I am really struggling on the fees part and I'm doing this and I think I'm going to give up, you may not be able to give the fees, but maybe you can guide them and say, why don't you consider doing this kind of internship job and work at this time and then, get some more money or find a way of showing them the ropes. So then following up, how are you doing today? It doesn't have to be every month, but just follow up and say, how are you doing? Sometimes it takes a lot for someone to be able to come and tell you that. It then even takes much more for them to open up. And I learned that again in UCU when I joined as a new lecturer, we were expected to mentor students. And I had two female students who came to me and I was asking them, why are you coming to me? I'm new. I don't think I have much to offer. They said, no, we want you to mentor us. And I'm like, wow, I don't think I'm, mentorship material. But it took at least 2 semesters. And in that, I was telling them, hey, this is what I think you should do. I'll listen to them and I'll guide them, but mostly also giving my examples about my life. And it helped them open up and they would now, tell you, there's this, there's that. And it got back to what is contributing to the way someone is. Someone is, the walls that they build around them. Now, to break those walls so that you get that beautiful, vibrant engineer who can do X, Y, Z, it takes time. There's no relationship that can be built if time is not invested. I always say time it's a currency that is so expensive. So the hand holding for me is a mix of time, a mix of follow-up, a mix of a level of transparency and brokenness, which we don't normally want to go to because we feel like, yeah, this is my life. It stops here. I can help you from there. Sometimes it takes you to get broken or rather expose yourself a bit that the other one may come off that wall. So for me, that is handholding to go beyond, the structures we think we've created. This is mentorship. Sometimes someone just wants to hear that you actually also failed or went through this and that. That makes them say, I think I can make it.
Yeah, I think I can also go past this point. Yeah. Thank you so much for honoring my invite. I usually round up with 5 fun questions that you can either answer a little bit in depth, but mostly just kind of straight to the point. Let's see. What's your go-to song when you're smashing out a long report?
A long report.
Yeah.
Bow Down and Worship Him by Benjamin Dube.
Okay.
It's simple, beautiful. It just, is it a slow song or is it, okay, this has no song.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting choice. I like to listen to rock or classical music when I'm doing a report. Yeah. What's your go-to snack?
That would be chapati.
Okay.
Yeah, for me it's easy to go to that. Back then it used to be gonja crisps. I love gonja crisps. Then I had some teeth issues, but yeah, it's chapati.
What's one thing you wish you had more time to do outside of work?
Writing.
Interesting.
I love writing small pieces. I remember trying to write at the time my own novels. So I started 3 of them and I've never finished. So that is the one thing I'd like to go back.
What was the novel about?
One was about experiences in life. Yes, picking on different texts and different women, about 3 of them. The other was about living in foreign lands and what it means and how to integrate. The final one was about a young man and a young lady who had just gotten married, and they were trying to understand the dynamics of marriage, giving up yourself so that you can be one. And the young man was from a single led parenthood, kind of from a single mom. So,
Okay. What's a common engineering myth or stereotype that you'd love to debunk?
That engineers know it all. Okay, yeah. Because sometimes you go somewhere and people think that you have answers to everything. And like, I would like us to bank that really. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's fair enough. No one knows everything. Yeah. And finally, what's the best piece of advice that you've ever received?
That would be you are enough. That when I received that, it broke so many walls and it helped me realize. "Yeah." And when I was given that piece of advice, it came from as a person you have both weaknesses and strength. Embracing all and knowing you are enough. That is important. Otherwise, you always be trying to make sure that you are too much of this and that and thinking that because you have this part low, you're not good enough.
Yeah. Is there anything else that you'd like to share in terms of advice for women in engineering or women thinking about pursuing engineering?
I think for me, the key advice of live here is that many have made it and you can make it. It probably won't be a straight line, but you can make it. And if you make it there limping, you still made it.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you so much again for coming. You're welcome. Yeah. And thank you so much for listening. And we hope you had some actionable insights that you could take away from this. And until next time, see you guys. Thank you.